This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joire.
Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joire, and today is Wednesday, March 20th, 2019. I'm at GDC, and my guest is Scott Stein of CNET. Hi,
hey,
Scott.
Hey, how are you doing? I'm great to be here again.
Yes.
After, I don't know how it's been a year since the...
It's been almost a year. I mean,
I
basically, I think we're going to make this a thing.
Yeah.
If you're okay with it.
I love it. I hope I can come to GDC every year.
Let's try to make it happen. And if you can't, we can do it remotely, so don't worry.
That's true.
Okay.
That's a good point.
So last year I had Scott on the show for GDC, and we're doing this again.
Yeah.
And it should be really fun. So it's day 3, technically?
I don't even know anymore.
It's Wednesday.
I couldn't even guess what the previous day was one day before that. Time is compressed and dilated at the same time.
We have enough to talk about where Google launched some stuff. There's some Oculus stuff. There's some Qualcomm stuff on the list. So let's dive right in. I think the biggest news... Oh, and also there's some Apple stuff, unrelated.
Oh, yeah. And there's Apple stuff throughout the week.
Yeah. So they've been dropping stuff every day this week because they have this big event next week.
Yeah.
That is all going to be about the cloud. And so they're dropping all their hardware news, which has never happened.
No.
And
it's like a totally inside-out approach. They're
like emailing us in the evening saying, get on a phone call in the morning. It's whacktastic.
Well, it's just a lot of morning press releases, and we're all catching up to it, and it's a lot of hardware news, and that means that there's probably going to be some pretty big news on Monday for their services strategy.
Yeah, they want to clear the room. Of course, there's also Huawei's news next week, which won't matter to the US, but it's going to matter to the rest of the world. I'll actually be there. I'll be in Paris for it.
That's cool. Well, Huawei leads the pack with hardware ideas. I mean, last year, their phone introduced stuff that we have now seen in other phones, like rear charging. Yeah. Through the back, and that phone was actually fascinating. The P20.
And then the Mate 20 after that, which I'm using as a backup recorder right now.
Yeah.
So dive into the Google thing, because to me, I don't know how you feel, because I haven't seen you. I saw you Monday night.
I know.
And I haven't seen you since Tuesday morning's announcement from Google.
Yeah.
Google launched this thing called Stadia.
Yes.
And Stadia is an interesting name. I think there's a lot we can talk about there. But,
yeah, definitely.
But to me, it kind of has that stadium, a community building sport thing going on at the same time.
Absolutely.
This kind of like, it's like Lexus. You kind of know what it means, but it doesn't really exist as a word, but it implies something. Luxury for Lexus.
It's interesting we say that because it's true. Between the logo and people talk about like maybe 90s look, but the logo and the clean look does have kind of a car design type feel. But it sounds Greek. It has the feeling of both esports or competitive play, but also like Greek. I think about like Greek theater, right? Gladiators or Greek theater community. We've all come together. There's definitely something like performing about it, or performative. So I was at that press event. Fascinating. I wish I had been able to play a demo.
So let's get into what we know and what we don't know.
Yeah.
And I'll actually, before we go there, I want to get your initial reaction. I actually decided to stay home, watch a live stream just because they couldn't guarantee me a spot. And live streams are so good nowadays.
It's basically. And
I was I can sleep an extra hour and be in my PJs. Not a bad deal.
The only thing you missed was waiting online and
seeing all you folks, which is always the social aspect.
I also forgot that I was on the stream. I think someone tweeted me a picture of me checking my phone on the stream because I was tweeting.
At least you weren't picking your nose.
That's what I was worried would happen. I know. It's just the luck of the draw when you.
So as it was unraveling, what were you thinking? Were you excited? Were you skeptical? Were you like, oh, of course you do that? Because a lot of that, for me, I had all those feelings.
Yes. So I have a lot of nested thoughts. First, I thought, oh, wow, outside they had that little mini museum pop-up display case at GDC where they showed all these classic game consoles. They showed the Power Glove even. They showed Atari consoles and then this glass case that said, coming soon. So I thought, whoa, how ambitious is this going to be? I knew it was going to be streaming, and we saw the controller, but I started to think
it's a console.
Will there be a VR headset? Will it be a console? Was going to be a whole new control scheme? So I thought, okay, well, there's not that. But I was super impressed by, of course, they're showing all the executives on stage. Jade Raymond leading Stadia's being a first-party game development studio. She's got incredible cred and Assassin's Creed and everything else. So
That actually was a nice icing on the cake.
That was cool. She had just been at the New York Game Critics Awards in New York, and I'd met her. She had won a big achievement award at that, and she's, just following her throughout the years. So that was cool. It lent a lot of credibility. Phil Harrison, everything else, all the companies, id. I used to do on live back in the day.
Right.
And, I played the beta on iOS before they never released it. And the Shield and streaming games through NVIDIA. So I've seen this before. I believe in the potential, but also, will it work reliably? So then hearing about that and the promises was exciting. The third part that I thought was really interesting was this whole YouTube hopping into worlds.
I think that's the most fascinating part.
That is the part. That's a story I still want to write and haven't been able to. But
it's only Wednesday.
Right. There's time, right? I was like, it's all over. And but it turned my head inside out a little bit. And I think that's the coolest thing that can happen at a show when you're already thinking big ideas and they make you think something different. So that was really cool. That whole machine learning art tool, like some things I tweeted, people got so excited about, where you could put different art styles into games. And this was like Ready Player One crazy.
Right? Totally.
This is the stuff where you're like, what the hell? This is the future. Holy shit. Like you're looking at like, it's turning into Van Gogh, skinning, and Pac-Man. It's sort of stuff you do on your phone maybe, but like now it's a whole game is being skinned this way.
Yep.
Who knows what that means? So many cool ideas, but I want to play it.
So I think the big thing is, I think for me the takeaway is the proof's going to be in the pudding, as they say, right?
Yes.
But I do want to kind of go through what they really announced. So what did they announce? They started first off with the idea, what if you could just hit a button, a link, and stream and basically start playing a game on any web browser. Well, in this case, Chrome-based.
Right. Well, they suggested the way they made it look, and it's going to be Chrome-based, but they made it look, they said, any laptop, tablet, phone, TV, and they set the ball all up.
With Chrome. I think that's the big thing here, right?
Right.
So we need Chrome.
But they didn't, in the demo, they didn't make it that apparent that was the conduit. They talked about it, but they just made it look kind of more like the magical thing. With Chrome, with a TV, would be a Chromecast Ultra, would be the way that you'd stream. And then, you'd switch between the devices, which is nice. So you'd resume on another and keep playing.
Yeah. So that to me immediately I was like, okay, so it's the streaming part I'm confident with, because I feel like if anyone in the world can pull this off, assuming you have an internet connection that can handle it,
right? Which
I actually think should be feasible for most people, at least 1080p 60.
I think so.
I think Google is a company who can pull it off. Right?
I think it'll be possible.
I thought about this. I really feel that there's only one company in the world who can pull this off right now.
What about Amazon?
No. Because they don't have the client side of it. Okay. They're a good CDN, right? AWS is a good conduit to provide live video to people who are, a content provider like Netflix.
Right.
But I'm not quite sure they own that customer side, right?
Yeah. Google,
like Amazon owns the customer side on selling stuff on their store, right?
I also think Microsoft
could.
And looks like they are in terms of streaming plans and ambitions. So that's another. But
Microsoft's going to have that conflict that a lot of companies have when they switch, a lot of conflicts like BMW and Mercedes have about making EVs, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not even talking about the politics of the, oil lobbies here and, that. But just they have to the
sheer amount of hardware.
They have bread and butter with existing hardware. Yeah. It's hard to flip the switch and go, forget all that.
Right.
We're going to move over to, and basically turn everybody's Xbox into a dumb streamer box, right?
Right.
Like when it's actually much smarter than that, right? So they have, I think, with Stadia at the helm, they could flip that switch instantly almost and go forget it, we're doing this now. And be competitive. But you're right, they're probably the only ones. Amazon could if they had maybe through the Fire stuff, but I don't know.
It's possible. And it does. So this is also stuff we expect that, I would expect that companies are going to keep heading towards. We've talked about the consoleless console for a while. And this model may be replicated by a lot of people. So you might start seeing a lot of stuff entering this space. I think that the hybrid, you're right though, I think the hybrid element might be really interesting too, because I don't really want to play necessarily everything in the cloud. Hardware is pretty cheap and a lot of stuff can play things. And as much as the streaming is really exciting, as somebody had tweeted this morning, Jason Schreier, I think, but it was something I've been thinking about that, he goes back home and plays Baba Is You, which is a great new game on the Switch. Totally lo-fi indie pixel, great game. Because we have that now. Like, there are so many lo-fi games that's my favorite part of the gaming movement. You don't need great streaming for that, but maybe it's a yes and in the improv world. It's both of those things.
I think that the two could merge. It would take some technology.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be amazing if it was a hybrid that could scale in real time.
Right.
So if your internet connection starts falling, some of stuff gets offloaded to the GPU and CPU on your phone because it's been able to stream the binary and cache it in the background.
Split processing. This is going to lead into Qualcomm.
I know. There we go. Perfect. Yeah. So, but my point is, I think the reason I was bringing up first the idea. Okay, so the first thing they presented was you click on a link, and more importantly, you can share links on anything that bring you not just into a game that instantly streams, but into any point in a game with a specific state and instantly streams. And that is a pretty big tour de force.
No, it's crazy.
And that's what the cloud buys you, right?
So that's what the cloud buys. And it also buys the ability to have, this is the other mind-bending thing, the beginning of like parallel instances. And they were talking about couch gaming. And
the return of like split screen.
Right, that split screen, you're all getting a different... You're all getting server love and your game center love. You're all getting, there's no compromise in split screen. So you could add as many people. You're all basically connecting independently, but you're all playing together and through the same pipeline, which is also trippy because there is like a parallel universe feel. Like as many GPUs as you need. They also talked about throwing multiple GPUs into games to change the way that rendering happens that wouldn't be possible on consoles. Or if you're going into other people's worlds through YouTube, which you can hop into now if they're streaming, or will be, then it feels like you could have these splinter worlds, like splinter universes. Yeah. Well, it's already happened. You have like
clone an entire new server of this game,
right?
That would serve an entire new universe of the same game.
And I guess it's already been like that with like servers and multiplayer games for years. But it starts to feel. There's a virtual reality feel. And then
there's a scalability feel. Yeah. And there's I think there's a, sci-fi Matrix, metaverse.
Ready Player One.
This is happening.
It is. And it's like there's no headset. But then I kept thinking, okay, this is Google.
You just add that.
You just add that. And when they said 4K 60, right now 4K 60 frames per second.
They're taking 8K 120.
Then they said 8K 120. And I don't know. Whenever I hear 8K, I don't think about a TV. I think about a headset.
Yeah.
Because,
that's what they were talking about.
That's what they're talking about. So then it's like...
Who needs freaking 8K on their television?
Right, who's getting 8K TV? You're talking about, and super high frame rate, you're talking about immersive worlds. And down the road, maybe not now, but in years to come with 5G and everything else and this stuff, that's probably what we're getting to.
It's interesting they didn't say the word 5G a single time.
No.
Because I think this is actually one of the few times where 5G is going to make this possible on the go.
It will. And I think that what they're saying is, and this is what companies are having to deal with, Microsoft, Google, you're seeing this everywhere. Qualcomm's announcement this week. People have to find solutions without 5G because the deployment's going to take time.
For sure.
Yeah, and so and some people just won't have it. So it's cool that they're saying everyone's got to think about a way to make it work without 5G, and then 5G will just help glue it all together and improve it, is what the realistic, instead of saying 5G is the magic wand, boom, you have the future.
They're it's here's an application, and if we add 5G to it, it's like adding a turbocharger to your car, right? Boom.
Right. And that's what it is. It's like magic turbo glue that will make everything happen.
So to me, that was like the streaming thing I think they can pull off. I love the idea of entering and sharing states and parallel universe, all that stuff we talked about. But to me, there's an entire aspect that is why I think Google is the only company who could pull this off as a whole, not just the streaming part. And that's the YouTube tie-in, because Microsoft does not have a video platform. Amazon does, but it's not at YouTube level. It's not a creator. It's not a community-based video platform, right? And then finally, Google Assistant, which we all know is the best AI in the world and AI assistant in the world. So now you can, the controller actually has that blew me away.
Assistant button.
Has an assistant button and a built-in mic.
I expected that it would have that. I was like, it's cool, but it's like, they've got to do that.
So the controller basically to me, there's nothing to it. I mean, I think it's fine.
And you don't even have to use it.
It's just that to me, that's what makes the controller, right? It's like they said that when they showed the thing where you're trying to play the game and you can't solve the puzzle and you keep dying and you finally hit the Google Assistant button, you say, "Hey Google, how do I get over that boss in whatever game?" And it gives you choices of videos.
It was the Prima guide. It's like the Prima guide. It's the walkthrough guide built into the game. So that was really cool.
Yeah. So to me, that's kind of what I think is so not copyable by anyone else. Mm-hmm. You need those ecosystems in place. And, yes, Microsoft has Cortana, but we all know it's not as good as Google because it just doesn't have the data. The reason a lot of people don't understand, and you know this, but I'm trying to assist with the audience, right? A lot of people just don't understand that. The more data you have, the better your AI. And Google has more data about everything and anyone because, they've been giving, we've been giving to them with our Google Gmail and Calendar. And I think it's beneficial. I benefit so much from that data I give them back from getting services that are very useful to me and make my life better. But at the same time, look at the Google Photos, I'm sorry, like if I ever switched to an iPhone, I don't think I would use iCloud for photos. I would use iCloud for my backups, of course. Yeah. But I think I would use Google Photos because I can type in, find all the pictures of dogs in July 2017.
Its ability to tag is great, and it's there, and it's cross-platform, and it's incredibly easy to use.
And that's because they have billions of photos to look at, so they can classify everything.
Well, like Google, for me, that whole Assistant tie-in and the YouTube tie-in is a huge power move and full of potential. But I think everyone's also wondering at the same time, how do they control it? Or is there such a thing as control in the traditional way? Because we think about YouTube communities. Okay,
it's pretty crazy.
That's a pretty complicated, right? It's a crazy world right now. And now you're going to have not just streaming, but literally a kind of these interactive worlds. And again, maybe we just admit we're already there. That is literally the internet. Like, we're already in a world full of crazy, fragmented social universes. But now just that YouTube could allow you to jump into games that are interactive.
And run in a browser.
On any
device pretty much that you have in your home.
And with YouTube already being weird and having a lot of issues on a lot of levels.
Privacy, security, and other stuff.
Privacy, security, content-related.
Moderation. All that stuff.
What do they do about that? Can they even do anything about that? And the same thing with Assistant. It's like, how do you know if I say, get me through this level? Hopefully you get the right video. Hopefully you're not getting like some very like cleverly crafted prank evil, I'm saying if the kids are playing or whatever else, just making sure that it's all on board.
Well, they did show some parental controls, which I thought was really cool.
You're going to need to have that.
You need to. I mean, but
it's also so social. It's so super social interconnected.
But you bring up a big point. Is that in parallel to all the great technology that we speak on the show about all the time, the new phones and new hardware, which we're going to get into, the hardware, folks. Stay tuned. You have to remember, I'm an ex-game developer. GDC matters to me, and Scott and I like to nerd out on this stuff. So. But I think there's a whole society, culture, sociology aspect here that we've been struggling. Look at what's happening with Facebook and Google, and some talk about breaking them up and stuff. And it's because honestly, Facebook has effed up. Like their business model goes against common. In my opinion, common decency and ethics, and they need to change that business model to incorporate that. And they clearly are not willing to quite yet. They say they are, but I don't believe them yet because that's not how they think. And they have to break out. It's like flip that switch, as I was saying, like the old car makers going to electric and wanting to go all out. They're like, but if we do this, it's going to break Facebook the way we have it now. And it's such a revenue cow. And I'm like, yeah, but you're hurting people.
Yeah, but
you're swaying elections. You're causing total chaos and mayhem in culture and society right now. Mm-hmm. And not in we can recover from this kind of we could go down a dark hole of cess here. Like, this is bad.
Well, and just because a system works doesn't mean that is a reason to keep it. There are bad systems. There are systems that are like it's a spiral of destruction. Like you have to have controls over this stuff. We're in a very accelerating future, and like the problem with that is that things can get out of control very fast.
And I think this is another example of, once again, technology is leapfrogging society and culture with this in a way we can't predict. Right. And we know it's going to be a mess, and we don't know what's going to happen. And I think we just have to go with it because you can't stop the future.
To some degree, but then you have to try to stop something. It's
tough,
exactly.
right?
It's a tough balance. You can't just let go. But sometimes it feels like you're on the future log flume. Like that. Basically, that's my feeling about everything now. This initiative was big. I think when I get to demo it, I'm excited to think about it more and understand it more. So swing it all the way back. I think they say coming out later this year, more to come in the summer. I think no prices.
More to come at I/O. We're going to hear about this. We've got to hear about this.
No, this is a big I/O one. Yeah.
So
and maybe they might drop in at E3 or something.
So you're right.
They might pick some future game thing.
You're right that right now there's a lot of questions. The pricing is a big question. Will it stream reliably for most people is a big question.
Right.
And not because of Google, but because of the ISPs and home connections people have that we know are not. I mean, I've worked very hard in my 2 residences to get a really good internet connectivity. Even then, I have issues. And I worked hard. What I mean by that is getting my own equipment, basically riding the ass of the companies when things aren't working. And I'm still not always getting the performance I want. 99% of the time, though, I have to say I'm at a point now where I can click on a YouTube video and stream it in 4K instantly really well in both locations. But on the go, that's also not the case.
Right.
So on the go, getting that 1080p, even 30 frames per second, is going to be a tough proposition. And on the go is the world we are in. Most people are not going to play this at home. They want to be doing this on the subway or whatever, right?
Yeah. Well, you bring up a good point that for Google, this matters a ton. And so to that degree, I think this is going to work because they need it to work. And it's not, if you unpack it, that's it. Video streaming is one thing. Sure, this is gaming, but it's really simultaneous interactive streaming. And that is the part that matters to Google. There's stuff there that probably will go beyond gaming.
Yeah.
That will go well beyond gaming. For now, it's gaming because it's a high bandwidth, you need to have your twitch reflexes working perfectly. It's very unforgiving, but there's all sorts of ways that could be applied that have nothing to do with games that could matter for Google. So I think that's why everyone's on stage talking about it.
Imagine watching a football game, and by football I mean soccer because I'm European. And you can choose, the camera angle in real time. You can choose, all kinds of parameters in real time using this technology. Really, it's not just. That's a very basic, essentially, game with a simple state machine.
Yeah.
Pick the camera, right?
Right.
And you can, and it's kind of already happening in the sense that
it's telepresence.
YouTube lets you do
simultaneous telepresence.
But I think that to me, what's exciting about this is that it's a platform, and they're treating it for devs like a platform. And they've created a new chip specifically for this in their data centers for the hardware that can do 10 gigaflops and scales and can, multi-scale. And it's running on Linux and using Vulkan as a graphics API. I think that is why, as a dev, ex-dev, this is where I'm kind of like, I would want to be on board on this right now, coding for this stuff. Because, it's only going to get, I think that in that sense, it's another platform. Like the consumer sees it as a stream coming to them. Yeah. But the developers, and this is why I think it's exciting for game developers. For the game developers, you now have essentially, iOS and Android and mobile, and you have PS4, Xbox, Switch, and this new thing called whatever, Stadia in the cloud, gigaflop machine thing. And they're going to give you a dev kit that you don't have to run in the cloud. You can run on your desk to develop on. And I think this is, to me as a dev, this would be the thing. Like I would jump on this right now, and that's why they're a GDC, because they need the support of developers. And so that brings us the next big unknown is how many titles, how many studios, how many publishers are going to get on board, and how quickly. We've already heard Unity and Unreal Engine are going to be running on this hardware, and that's good. But that's just the engines. Now we need the titles, and you said there's a few that were announced, but and they have a studio they create. And that's the other thing I thought really interesting. Like Microsoft has a game studio, Google now has a game studio.
That was very interesting.
Wow, it's taken that long. I'm surprised because with Android, you think they would have done it a long time ago.
Well, that might prove that they need to lead by example too. That they know that they need to make this happen and work. Devs, it's a really smart move at a conference like this because you're right, it's cross-platform. doesn't require hardware per se, cloud-based. There's a lot of social tie-ins. I imagine game developers would be super excited to try to dive into this. But the way it changes game design is also interesting. A few developers I got to talk to, like just casually, when I brought this up, started bringing up that the nature of this changes the way that they might make their games in ways that might freak them out, or the ways that might be a lot of possibilities. The ways that you can jump into different instances. I feels like it's going to change game design. Well, it should, and that's exciting. It might be a little bit threatening if somebody had like a big online social type of game that you wonder, oh, is this going to work with Stadia? Like, is this, I don't know. They're like, I don't know if that's going to make the right move. I'm curious about those types of games, which there are a lot, how they feel about making the move to Stadia and being like, will they feel co-opted, or will they feel, they're like, I don't know. I think we got our own thing going.
Any developer right now who's bleeding edge is not thinking of jumping into this and trying, and not just developers, but designers who are not like wanting to make that switch in their heads right now. You better make that switch in your head.
Oh, I'm sure there's a ton.
And here's
it's a big statement and move forward.
I wouldn't be surprised if 5 years from now, Stadia has developed into an ecosystem where you have VR goggles made by multiple companies like Android phones are, that are running a custom ARM-based chip made by Google, who at that point will have acquired a chip maker, that it can offload and scale in real time between the cloud and the device transparently, right? In the same way as Apple made their own ARM chips, and we are getting a much better user experience and software experience and battery life from the smaller batteries, et cetera, et cetera. And this is what I think Qualcomm, and we should probably switch to talking about them.
We should definitely talk
about
Qualcomm.
Not at all being involved in this in any way, at least not officially being mentioned, worries me for them, because I feel that, we don't see Snapdragon chips on servers. Mm-hmm. And they really need to go there because, there's going to, as I said, if Google ever wants to make this 10 gigaflop, whatever chip, scale down in size and power so that they can offload some edge processing to the edge, to the devices, right? Because bandwidth becomes crowded or they want to be able to scale dynamically, they're not going to want to pick, it's going to be hard to scale it if it's another complete chip design, right? Like you need, and of course I'm sure it's ARM-based because ARM is first of all, ARM rules the world and ARM's the most efficient thing even on servers. So I wouldn't be surprised if the actual non-GPU part of these crazy custom chips they made for Stadia in their data centers are actually ARM-based. So there is some potential parity, but that's I think a big deal that we have to think about this. And I hope Qualcomm sees that as well. I'm going to ask them that next time I'm at a big conference because, I don't see, maybe they do have some ARM chips for servers that I'm not aware of, but I don't think so. Right now I know of Snapdragon chips for wearables, for PCs, the CX series, for, of course, all the 8 and 7 and 6, 4 series for 2 series for phones. And then, there's some custom chips for vehicle, car use, and some custom chips for, like maybe peripherals, like, the speakers and stuff. But I'm not aware of them making server level chips. And, ARM, part of the reason SoftBank bought ARM, in case you forgot, by the way, that a Japanese company owns ARM Holdings now, a Japanese company that is like a big, essentially cloud service company, because they're a carrier, but they do way more than that. It's interesting to me because ARM was pushing really hard a few years ago when I met with them, Simon Segars and these guys at MWC, when I was at Engadget. They pushed really hard on ARM for servers. And so I think this is going to be the big question mark is, where does Google go from here? Do they develop their own chip? Or does Qualcomm provide some sort of chip that is compatible with the instance of what's in Stadia Cloud so that they can eventually do this kind of weird mixed thing? And maybe that's not going to be needed. Maybe everything's going to be so fast with 5G that it's all going to be in the cloud all the time.
So all these companies, no one does things alone. Like all these companies are going to run in parallel. I think we see these trends replicate a lot of times, and it looks like everybody's doing something at the same time. I'm looking at that trend of edge and cloud. Microsoft, when I went out to Redmond and we looked at HoloLens 2, and they talk about, Alex Kidman talks about that edge cloud strategy, that you got to have the intelligent edge, and they believe in that. But they're building the cloud to do cloud rendering, and the HoloLens 2 ideally is going to split that rendering.
Yeah.
And that they're going to have cloud rendering to improve the accuracy and the depth of what they can do. But they have the Qualcomm chip in that one too, that's in the headset. Now, Qualcomm as well is working on designs for other, they announced at GDC, VR standalone headsets with Snapdragon 845. That
855.
845.
Oh, interesting.
845. They're always like a kind of step behind on the
VR,
not behind,
XR,
but VR AR.
and
It's interesting because last year was 845. I thought it would be 855. It's still 845. And it has 802.11ad. So it's going to connect with PCs. They said that Pico Neo 2 will be the first headset that has that this year.
So it's a standalone headset.
Standalone 845 headset.
845, but then it can connect wirelessly to a PC.
So it connects wirelessly.
For higher performance.
No, wait, this is where it gets interesting. So it connects wirelessly with the PC to WiGig. It's that high bandwidth, 60 gigahertz bandwidth, which I've been excited about for years. Back there were concept wearables.
Yeah.
I was telling people at the office, and they were like, "What are you talking about, Stein?" Like, I said, WiGig is, if you do that, then you have wireless connections for high bandwidth. Vive has done this on their VR. We've seen wireless VR that has done this already with these little attachments. But what's cool here is that it can connect to a PC. Now, the standalone could be a PC headset, which I haven't tried, but I'm going to soon. And it splits processing. This is the cool part. So Qualcomm's going to have software running on PCs. There's going to need to be 802.11ad. And then the processing split will interchange that the graphics go up to the headset. The 845 will handle a lot of the in-headset and also the SLAM and room tracking. All that stuff will happen in the headset, go back to the PC. And there may be some other stuff too. It may not affect the GPU, they said, but it might affect the CPU that you might not need. Of course, the GPU is what makes you upgrade to a beefier laptop. But I think that's really interesting. And parallel, they had said to me, Hugo Swart talked to me about that, like the 5G initiative, which I talked about at Mobile World Congress, that they're doing split processing as well with mixed reality headsets, that they want to have 5G be out there. So this goes back to Google. High bandwidth stuff, but stuff that needs to be reliable locally, that you can't screw up, that needs to be edge. So it's all out there that's happening. And I think that Qualcomm, to me, what it seemed like is they're trying to bridge that gap to 5G. Yeah. That there's going to be a similar identity. But it's funny because some of their stuff is plug into USB-C VR glasses. Others like this are wireless that connect to a PC. And I think about HoloLens, and I think like devices are going to start moving to this edge cloud thing. And then Google, okay, hot potato there. What are you doing? Google's business is the cloud. So I think they're building all this stuff to be super powerful on their end, probably knowing that the hardware edge cloud thing is not there yet. Right. But they're really counting on it to be.
And that's what I'm saying. And
that's what you said. So
I don't think that
it's device partnerships, or that's an interesting thought, though. Do they make their own chips? Like, at this point with any company, why not? Apple's launching a streaming video service, trying to go service.
ARM does not make
Google
chips.
Could be doing hardware.
ARM licenses architectures.
Right.
This is the whole point of the ARM. That's why ARM has taken over the world. Because anybody can take ARM and tweak it. Qualcomm did it. The Creo is a tweak of the standard ARM, whatever, 57. I don't know. I can't keep track of them, the numbers. But you know what I'm saying? And that I think that if you look at Apple, this is probably they're probably the most prevalent example today of having, kind of like taken an ARM design and put it to the gym, and turned it into like their own little gym bunny monster. Yeah. And it does some pretty serious heavy lifting. See what I did there? Oh, yeah. But I mean, I think...
Exactly. Like they push the super on the local power to the extreme. Yeah. But then you have the other side. Google could totally do it. And maybe as the nature of Google's products become even more cloud-based with a little bit locally, that becomes a bigger need. Like maybe that's like where, you don't want to have more distant partners. You want to have something that feels more integral to Google. But then I don't know, their products keep coming and going. It's like every time I think there's like a cool Google product, I feel like there's like a short life cycle and it drifts and mutates into something else.
I mean,
Google
look,
Glass
it's interesting though, because Google has done some edge computing stuff.
Yeah.
Like quite well. Like, for example, on Pixels, that ability to tell you what music is playing is not cloud-based.
Right.
It works with in airplane mode. You can be anywhere and it'll say this is the song. And, it only has a database of like, a subset, maybe 10% of the music out there. But it's the stuff that's the most popular, and that makes sense. So just to be clear to the listeners, the Qualcomm wireless VR headset you saw, that's a prototype that they were showing here at GDC, right?
Right. And I didn't even see it yet. So I was supposed to see it.
It exists.
Yeah, it exists, and it's here. I'm going to be seeing it actually right after this. I was going to see it on Monday, and then timing was crazy. I was looking at Facebook's VR, which we haven't even talked about yet.
Yeah, well, let's get into that in
Facebook's VR. I didn't say Oculus VR. I said Facebook's VR because it's Facebook's VR. But yeah, they have their own prototype Qualcomm, which they have these reference design headsets.
Yeah, of course.
But they do have an OEM this time right off the bat, Pico Neo 2, which they were confident about 2019. But it sounds like there'll be some stuff coming in 2019, but like a lot of this stuff, you look at it rolling down the line. But Qualcomm's reference designer chips, they are a good future predictor of VR headsets to come. Their standalone came before Oculus Go, Snapdragon 820. The 835, I got people yelling back at me a little bit about this on Twitter about whether the reference design really led to these headsets, but they do. I mean, it's like Apple and laptops. They do their own secret sauce and magic. But the 835 led to Lenovo Mirage Solo. It led to HTC Vive Focus and now Oculus Quest.
Yeah.
So 845, what's coming? Eye tracking last year that they showed with Toby. This idea, and so companies like Facebook, HTC, they're not going to talk about what's coming, and they're not going to want to admit that what Qualcomm laid out as a reference design is a roadmap to the future.
Yeah.
Like, we'll make our own decisions, but
we know.
They certainly those are the pieces to the puzzle. It's like a magician's bag of tricks. It's like, well, you might have this, this, and this. Then they'll probably include those elements.
Yeah.
It's like when Apple announces a feature that you've seen in another phone. It's because those building blocks are there, and now Apple's finessing them and improving them and amplifying them.
That's their thing, right?
Right.
Their
and they
attention to detail.
You've seen this, but you haven't seen it like
amazing.
this.
Yeah.
So I think it's always cool to see that because it gives you a hint of what's happening.
So I haven't seen the Oculus stuff, the Facebook stuff, the Quest stuff. Let's talk about this quickly. Tell me what's going on there. What's different? What's new?
So this is interesting. So first of all, Oculus Quest, which no one's really tried. I've gotten to try a couple of times, and it's coming out this spring. We don't know exactly when, but last year Oculus Go launched at F8. And we're sort of in the spring time frame, $399. That standalone headset, which is 835 Snapdragon based, has 6 degrees of freedom tracking.
Yeah.
And the demos I've had with it are great. It really feels like you wonder, is this a PC or is this a console?
So it gives you kind of some of the experience of being tethered to a PC for VR in a standalone device, right?
Right. It gives you full motion and very smooth full motion. And for all the demos I tried, I didn't see it break. I didn't see any issues with it. The controllers are Oculus Touch controllers.
Okay.
They're modified, but I'll get to this in a sec. They really are going to be the same as the PC going forward. So they have vibration feedback in the buttons. And I played Beat Saber yesterday, which is like, the killer app that people talk about.
Of course.
It was great. I mean, I was totally sweaty and exhausted. I don't know if you have to wipe down your headset afterwards, but I was really
probably do it for you.
Right. Or like at home for fitness, right? Like, what are you going to do with that? But I was super exhausted. It did not have problems with my arm motions. Everything was lightning fast. And that was a really good sign for this and a really great demo. But Quest is a mobile headset. Oculus has announced that they said before that they're going to be curating that game library for Quest. 50 titles, but not dumping everything in the world, including for their mobile platform Go. That stuff won't be there. And developers are nervous and upset because what about the experimental VR stuff?
Right.
Well, what Facebook said at the event that I went to is that, so they also announced a PC headset, a new one.
Oh.
The Rift S. And that's a refinement on the Oculus Rift that uses the same inside-out tracking as the Quest. So it actually created what looks like two increasingly parallel devices. And they didn't shy away from this. They were like, yeah, they're both $399. They both have camera-based tracking, they both use the same controllers. So these new touch controllers are cross-compatible. They announced that cross-buy and cross-play are going to be on both of them.
Right.
Up to the developers. But from here on in, it sounds like the goal is that if you're making a game for Rift, you better make sure it works on Quest as well.
Got it.
Which could really dampen how ambitious games are made, because Quest is mobile in the end. It looks good, but it is going to be optimized and more limited. So it begs a lot of questions here. It sounds like they're trying to make them feel like a common platform, and they are. But
I think that's important, because you see,
it is important.
I think if you look at the few people who use VR out there to play games for entertainment, there's very few people who do it in a dedicated space with a PC-based headset.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, it's a niche of a niche of a niche. And yes, that's where the high-end happens. I get that, in the same way as, people build high-end gaming PCs, and that's what...
And it's how creators work. It's how developers work.
I also think that that's a very short-sighted thing. It's the model of the console. And we're switching away from that with Google and others, with Stadia. We have to remember mobile is king.
Absolutely.
Mobile is what's going to democratize VR potentially, and you have to invest in it. If you are a Rift creator, you should invest all your R&D, Oculus creator, you should invest all your R&D in not trying to run the fastest frame rate, highest resolution, best effects possible on a PC-based Rift. You should do that on a Quest or a Go, because that's where the bread and butter is going to be. That's also, if you can fix those challenges technically, it'll run a million times better on the PC version, and the PC niche players will love it too.
Right. So, and Oculus Rift, their game development going forward is not about pushing more powerful graphics. Nate Mitchell was saying at this event, and Jason Rubin was there as well. The games will push similar power, and that's exactly the point. They want to create. They want to reach more people.
Yeah.
And it's Facebook. They're not about the PC.
No.
So the PC is there because it's still needed as a platform. And that's where the early access things are going to happen. And it sounds almost like a strategy that's happening with console now. It made me think about Nintendo Switch, which is curated or started very curated and turned out just fine. They have a ton of games. And I think it was a smart move for the Switch to be more curated at the beginning, working with developers who knew what they were doing, that they could vet out a little more, weren't dumping so much crap in there, and it developed a very strong library. They want that for Quest. And so if developers, their answer to developers who might be listening and freaking out is they said, well, look, the Rift is there as your development platform. Do your early access things there. And then, like Steam, it reminds me of like Steam games, where you have experimental Steam games, indie hits, they become big, and then you move over to saying, we're also launching on Switch, we're launching on PlayStation 4 or whatever. So I think that's the goals, and that makes a lot of sense to me. You try it out on the PC, and then you move to the Quest. But also the Quest will be less forgiving because it doesn't have as much power. If the experiment gets a little outside of its boundary, the PC will be fine for you.
Right.
But the Quest will really need you to optimize more.
And that's what I mean, and that's going to bring better games.
Yes.
Because optimization always brings better games.
It will, and they need that. They need killer apps. And but then I look at these two headsets. I think about Qualcomm's announcement. The immediate thing I look at is I go, let's just make those two headsets fuse and become one. Let me just cross my eyes.
I agree.
Of course. And they know that too. They wouldn't say that specifically, but also, again, to be clear, Qualcomm just announced this at GDC, and it's a reference design. So no one's ready to go there yet, and also price and everything else. I think Facebook, Oculus, they're very price conscious, so the price of the Rift S actually has gone up a tiny bit, but it's all self-contained in the headset for tracking. But I don't think they want to go much higher.
Right.
And so when it comes to adding things like eye tracking, well, first of all, which would be a whole Pandora's box for Facebook. We're talking about data tracking. There's a whole big thing with eye tracking, like what the hell is going to happen with your eyes and data. We're looking at it for enterprise right now, but it is pretty terrifying to think about what that extra data would be in the hands of everyone.
It's like
but they're not going there
It's
yet.
like Facebook and Portal. Like I
Right.
actually have friends of mine who worked with me at Pebble who I holding super high esteem running, pretty high end, pretty high up in the food chain on the Portal project.
Yeah.
And of course they're invested. It's their baby, right? But I'm like, I cannot go there. Like, I cannot conceive of getting a hardware device from Facebook in my home when Facebook is messing up so badly their business model in terms of privacy and security and digging in, it seems. So like, to me, it's like, I want to see the technology advance, but at the same time, you got to draw a line somewhere. It's like,
I know. That's the hardest part for me.
I think
when it comes
Portal's
to Oculus.
bringing in, like, if you look in the absolute vacuum, like the technology developed for Portal, the fact that the camera can track you and move and follow you, of course you want that. That's how you do a good video call. I get it. But
and Facebook's side for that, that's a growing, they see that as
But
as
I
part of the
don't want
AR
it on
future.
the Facebook platform. It scares me to death that they are going to be able to see into my home because they already know so much. And maybe people are like, oh, you got to chill out. No, I don't think so. There are some companies with whom I'm willing to kind of be like, okay, but Facebook is not one of them.
Talk about splitting up companies. That's what I want. I want that whole hardware group to be removed from Facebook.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. The work that's done there is always fascinating to me. Portal, I have not used, but that is seen as connected to their AR and VR world. That's totally an AR initiative for Facebook.
Yeah.
But you look at it and you just think about, well, I'm terrified about privacy, Facebook, etc. And that has to be split. That has to be split apart because whatever that monster is on the one side, that Facebook is socially, that shouldn't be the same as what's going on with the hardware. And it's how I feel about Oculus, because Oculus has been I still think is the best VR all-around platform. I think it's the most finesse. They take the most care about the software to hardware integration.
Yeah.
But being absorbed by Facebook, being within Facebook, it just becomes another thing that hangs over that. It doesn't show in VR.
But how do you decouple them?
I don't know.
How do you decouple Portal from Facebook Messenger?
You can't. And if you're a consumer, it's always going to be in your head. And right now in VR for Facebook, they don't interact a ton. But it only seems like it's going to...
I actually do have an answer to that question.
It only seems like it's going to increase, and I really hope it doesn't.
You decouple Portal from Facebook Messenger by making it work with WhatsApp. I would feel more comfortable with that.
Or just decouple as much as possible. Yeah, like allow it to... I mean, Google, I guess, has those same things with hardware and software, but somehow it just works. Well, also Google's not in the situation that Facebook has been. Yeah. But that's the mess of it. And it's hard because also Facebook, Oculus has had a lot of departures. And so people who've been following Oculus for a while have questions on whether it's the same vision, et cetera. But I think it's still a continuation of the same vision. I think it's just that you wonder what's the end of the road. Like, are we heading right into the gaping Facebook data mound? Right. Yeah. Are we just becoming part of the? Are we just becoming the collected data? There's more to it than that. But so as Facebook is developing standalone hardware for Oculus Quest, now we're dealing with totally self-contained, not any other hardware. You want to have a comforting leap for that. Yeah. The magic leap. You need to make the magic leap into it. But I think Oculus Quest, though, is one of the most exciting pieces of hardware I've seen in a while. It reminds me of Nintendo Switch. I'm really excited to play it more. And I don't know where it's all going to head. But I wrote about my impressions on CNET.
We don't know where anything's going to head.
We don't know where anything's going to head.
Where is Stadia going to head from Google, right?
No. But if you don't have Oculus pushing VR right now, I'm worried. Not worried, it's the wrong word, but I'd be concerned for anyone working in VR, like, where's the push coming from? Because everything's getting more enterprise and it's getting a little drifty.
Honestly, as a game dev and somebody who's followed the mobile space, as you know, forever like you, I am actually absolutely not very enthused about VR. I'm enthused about the technology, like what we're doing with it, but I don't think there's an application yet. Other than very much niche, even for as I said earlier, of course, the PC is super niche, but I'm talking even the portal, and tell you why, because I think AR is it. I think HoloLens, I think Magic Leap, when they come down to the size of the glasses you and I are both wearing right now, right, that is the killer app. Well, that is what we want. Because it can be turned into VR by just closing the shutters, And that's my point.
It is, but I also
and we're
very
so far
conscious.
from that.
That's the thing, is that I look at this and I go, okay, I can see that. I know everybody's involved in AR, but I started to wonder, will we get there? Because
will.
There's always the uncanny valley split. There's always like the difficulty when you try to get to that point of the super finessed level that you want, and it gets harder the closer you get to it. We'll get there, but I think there are compromises that are clearly needing to be made that maybe haven't happened yet in terms of AR.
No,
you know what I mean?
All of this needs to happen. I'm not saying it doesn't.
It'll never feel totally
I'm just
indistinguishable
saying
from
that
reality.
anybody who bets a lot of money right now on VR becoming mainstream in the next few years is wrong.
Yeah.
I think
it's an offshoot. It's an offshoot.
It's a technological playground, not playground, but a place for us to experiment and advance technology that's eventually going to lead us to AR.
And it's a tool. It's one element. It's AR. Yeah, it's blindered AR.
Correct.
It's all part of the same thing.
And in some ways, as you said, Portal and other technologies, while phones themselves are also helping move that along with technologies like 5G, technologies like depth of time of flight and 3D depth cameras that are being put on everything front and back. Every phone in 2020, pretty much mid-range and up, will have a front and rear time of flight camera, guaranteed. Right.
It's just a super connected world of like what you're doing to the digital, and having that interplay is AR, but also will make VR better. So it's like it's the thing at the other end. Like VR, sure, it's the smoothest working idea of transporting you, but we're still missing the other end, like the telepresence part, or the what is the shared universe we're doing in VR. Right now, it's a very solitary. Maybe you find a few people that you're talking with in a room or in an app, but that's the Ready Player One missing part, or that's the metaverse missing part, is the metaverse. Like and to me that's vibrant world.
That's Google's Stadia, right?
That's exactly
where we're going, right?
That Stadia is.
Now, if I can see you combine these two, now you might have some more mainstream pickup, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you can jump modes, if you can go from the phone to the goggles in the same metaverse.
VR is just the monitor you wear on your head.
Exactly.
The actual cyberspace has always been somewhere else.
It's starting.
Yeah.
We thought we had it. We didn't.
We're getting it again.
We're getting it again in the way we've imagined it in sci-fi, I think. I want to switch to NVIDIA Jetson Nano, because I think we just talked about cool hardware, and I think this is like a Raspberry Pi-like board on steroids for $99. And I think it's very interesting.
I hadn't even really been following
this. I have an article here from our friends at Engadget. And basically it's designed for DIY enthusiasts. So it's like a Raspberry Pi. Yeah. And it's just more powerful as NVIDIA GPU processing on it.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Right? So you can...
That's a smart move.
You can put that on a robot and maybe have a cheap poor man's LiDAR and have it process some stuff, on the GPU side. And for $99, so it's got a 128 core Maxwell-based GPU, which is obviously what their bread and butter is, and an ARM A57. So what I think is good about this is that it's still super affordable, power efficient. Yeah. But you as a DIYer, as a maker, as a home hobbyist, can now have a NVIDIA GPU that's not bound to an Intel chip.
Take that and find a way to pop it into
a tablet, like to a consumer device. It's basically a piece of hardware you could put in anything.
I wonder if you could pop that into a Sphero rover. That
why not?
That Sphero initiative, that's coming out later this year. That little rolling Sphero robot, that was super cool because they were opening that up to add your own Raspberry Pi and other things on top, kind of like their Misty robot. And they say add your own board. And they want it to be open, you could add one of these things.
I need to read up to see if it's Raspberry Pi pin compatible, and port compatible. If it is, then
add your little room sensing camera, your Azure Connect somehow. One of those, or the occipital. What's the name of their new structure sensor? The one that's like, is it the core? I think it's interesting. You have all these little pieces. That's a cool device.
So I just want to mention it. We do have we're a bit limited on time, but I want to cover all the Apple stuff real quick. We have about 10, 15 minutes. Okay. So in a nutshell, so far, it's Wednesday. Every day they've surprised us with something new. Monday was new iPads, newish iPads. Tuesday,
new iPad.
Tuesday was updated iMacs
Yep.
and iMacs only. There were some configuration changes on the MacBook and Mac Minis, it turns out, as well.
Yeah.
Mostly drops in price on the SSDs, but that's configuration only. And then today, a bunch of finally new AirPod version 2s with a new wireless chip and an optional wireless case.
Yes.
I want you to talk about the iPads if you can.
Yeah. So all these things have just been dropping very fast, clearing the deck, I guess, for next week. I will not be at that Apple event, but I have colleagues who are, and should be about video streaming and who knows what else. But clearly,
maybe it'll be the Google Stadia Apple edition. Maybe they're going to surprise us with something crazy like that.
I think it's a big play.
Not Google, not Play. I don't think it's going to be game, but I think it might be like that for video.
Apple, we need a name for that. It'll definitely be a platform play to something more fundamental, I think, than just TV. And then the question is, how will that look like? But the iPads, so there are 5 iPads now, and they're adding.
Let's go through them.
Yeah, they're adding to the line, much like the MacBooks. So let's go through them. It's getting a little bit squirrely now. You've got the 9.7-inch entry-level iPad. That came out.
That hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed. That got pencil support got added last year.
Yeah.
All the iPads now have pencil support,
right.
which is nice.
Of some kind.
Yeah. That all pencil support. But the question is which pencil.
That's
exactly.
what I'm saying. Of some kind.
Yeah. So that's nice. 9.7-inch iPad. That's like the same price, same thing. A10 processor. Then you've got the Mini. The new Mini. They hadn't updated the Mini since 2015. That had an A8 processor. This now is an A12 processor, so it's like the iPhones last year.
Yeah.
$399 though to start, so that's not cheap if you're shopping for a kid. This is not a kid. Kids and iPad Minis are a good combo. I know from experience, but like that, you have to buy a budget model or get a Kindle Fire or something else. That's it. So it's like really seems to be high-end designed, but it's still the same old design. Still got the bezel, still got Touch ID, still got the headphone jack. The headphone jack's nice to have. Touch ID is
still
arguably...
has Lightning.
Still has Lightning. So it's the same design. It's what they've done with a lot of their models where they drop in new components to an old chassis.
Sense.
Yeah, but then it's like $399, which is, I mean, that's not hyper expensive, but it's also not cheap. And the A12 is nice to have. The iPad Air, which is where this lineup now gets confusing, the Air is back, but just understand it as if you've been following the iPad line, it's the 2017 iPad Pro.
The smaller one of the two.
The 10.5
inch.
It's the 10.5 inch iPad Pro, which is a great iPad Pro. They have removed ProMotion, so it doesn't have the 120 hertz refresh.
But what did they add?
It has an A12 processor.
So it's faster.
Yes, but it's not the X. So, the X chips add an extra graphics boost. But the A12 should still be fast and should be faster. And that's $499. But that seems like the best middle ground. That's like the $499 is like...
And it's the same, right? Fingerprint, Touch ID.
So Touch ID,
Lightning,
headphone jack.
Same display, bezels and the same.
Same display and bezels.
Design.
But it's not so bezel-y as the iPad Mini. It seems like a better bezel.
It uses the same accessories as the previous
and
iPad.
It uses the iPad 2017 iPad Pro Smart Connector. So it's got the keyboard options. Right. We could also do Bluetooth. It's got all that in cases. Then you have the iPad Pro line that was announced last year.
Which is the same.
Yeah, those are the same, but those also have Face ID, USB-C.
Pencil 2 support.
Pencil 2 support.
Which all the other ones are Pencil 1
Different smart connector that's in the back. And that's the thing. That's the other crazy thing is that the iPad Pros have the snap-on pencil that's more nicely designed with a tap control that can add an extra function. The others have the one that you have to uncap the back, plug it in like a dagger, and have it pop out the iPad to charge. I mean, good that you can still use those old pencils and find a use, but the fact that the pencils are not cross-compatible, and you now have some of the line using Lightning with headphone jacks and Touch ID, and some of them not, is confusing, and you end up with a ton of iPads. I think it definitely takes the shine off of the 11-inch iPad Pro, where you say, I don't know, everything's incremental with price. So you have a $499 iPad Air, then you have a $799 iPad Pro. Some people might look at that and go, I'll spend a little bit more. Everything seems calculated to be like drifting up the price scale. But I think at some point you got to get off. You got to get off the train and not keep spending more if you're buying one of these things. So like $499 seems like the point to stop.
Yeah.
The iPad Pro, sure they look nice, but what they really need is the software and the USB-C flexibility to turn those into the thing you want them to be.
Right.
Like, you can't attach external drives. You can't do the flexibility with USB-C that you think you would. It's more right now I found that the iPad Pro with USB-C is a little more parallel to Lightning in that Lightning has dongles for video out and stuff
Absolutely.
like that. You can actually, and as a Lightning to USB adapter, you can handle a bunch of stuff. It's not fun to buy an iPad when you know the future is already present.
Yeah.
And you go, well, now when are they going to flip the switch on the rest of that? That sucks.
I think it's
that's the breakdown of the lineup.
I'm still not amused at the fact that Apple persists with Lightning and large bezels. But
on the Mini, it's painful.
On these new iPads, I think that it's nice so that they're drawing a clear line between the Pro line and the regular line. Even though, as you said, the Pro should support mass storage and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Apple. I mean, what do you do? It's like every time you see a step where they should be, like where you should be at, they need to sell hardware at 3 intermediate steps before that and make money. And that's what annoys me about it. It's like, that's why I like the iPhone X so much, because it was finally, we have parity with what Android phones have been bringing to the table. And in some ways we surpass on Face ID.
Yeah.
Right? But finally a phone that felt competitive, felt modern, right? But now they're iterating on that, and we're probably not going to see much change for a long time. And it bothers me.
Not until the folding phone and 5G world shakes out.
It really bothers me that Apple takes so many intermediate steps for everything to milk everything. I don't like it. It's like, at this pace Huawei and Samsung are moving, and clearly I think this year, if you're in the US, the Galaxy line, from the 10e, S10e to the S10 Plus are absolutely the best choice. Yeah. I hate to say this, but the only iPhone I would buy right now is the 10R. I've said it forever because I really think it's the best bang for your buck, and it's still a great phone. Yeah. But why bother with the 10S and the 10S Max when you have like a Galaxy S10 Plus and a Galaxy S10 out there? Even the Galaxy S10e is, I think, a better choice than the iPhone XS, in my opinion.
Right.
Okay?
Well, the 10e really laid down a direction for Apple too about where they could go with their budget, but the 750 phone is to say, you could still go further with that. Samsung did a more polished, future forward.
And I think, Huawei is about to launch the P30 next week.
Yeah.
I'll be in Paris for that. So I think we're going to need another leapfrog forward, because Huawei has really been showing how to create hardware that's got everything in the kitchen sink in it for the last 2-3 years. So if you're hearing a bit of construction behind us, it turns out that this hotel room, apparently, they're digging to come and get us or something. You might not hear it, but we're going to let it go. I want to touch on the other news. I mean, obviously, I don't know more than you. I'm just reading other people's news at this point. What's your thought on the iMac updates? Very incremental, 8th gen chips.
I follow a little bit. I think it's pretty incremental. I mean, it's like just keeping them, the thing that with Macs has always been like versus PCs, getting the processing power, the graphics, or the options that people feel like they have the flexibility to do that.
It's about time, though, that we got the 8th gen core chips on an iMac.
Yes, absolutely.
It's been like, 2 years since they updated or refreshed?
Well, yes. I mean, I think those are like pretty straightforward. For me, it's like it becomes harder for me to focus on Mac when I know that the iPad needs to become part of the Mac universe.
Yeah.
So every year that I see Mac updates, I am like, well, that's good that they did that.
But I feel that's different with the iMacs. I agree with you on the MacBooks.
Oh, and the iMacs
I feel
is
the
different.
iMacs, like right now, I mean, I feel like as a Mac user and a longtime Mac fan that Apple is really not delivering on the Mac platform in terms of hardware upgrades and the things we really want, especially on the laptops.
Well, we're still supposed to have that modular Mac Pro.
Right.
And
that's coming.
It's coming, but
when?
There was that sit-down story that they had with Phil Schiller, a couple outlets, and like when is that going to happen? So maybe that's, I don't know, maybe this year, maybe next year.
I think the thing that's exciting to me...
what are they doing in this?
It's getting worse. I tell you, they're getting closer to us. They're digging to find it.
It's getting with the giant drill. Just entering the room.
I think what's interesting to me about the iMacs more pragmatically is, they updated them. It was due, big deal. Go to apple.com and check out the spec changes. My big excitement thing about it is the iMac entry-level 27-inch. The Core i5 is now a 6-core. So you're going to immediately see an improvement in performance if you do anything compute intensive. So if you've been holding off to buy an iMac, now's the time to do it because it probably won't get updated for another 2 or 3 years.
That's the thing. It's a totally safe upgrade time, and it's always nice to see, if you're thinking about buying stuff, especially when the prices stay equivalent, it's always nice to wake up one morning and see that the specs have been upgraded. Because you go, oh, thank goodness I didn't just buy, I know people who were buying the other iPads and they go, oh wait, they just updated to this. So it's never a bad thing.
I've had my iMac for a year and a half, so I feel I'm okay. I had it early enough in the cycle that I don't feel too slighted. What do you think of those AirPod Gen 2? I mean, we don't know much about them other than they have better battery life because of the new wireless chip, and they have a wireless charging option.
Just popped out of nowhere. Well, so there are some subtle differences, clearly not AirPods 2 in all caps. This is like a stealthy update. It's got the wireless case, which you can buy extra. And on its own, it's expensive.
$79.
$79. Although that's also it. They're folding in the price of the case itself because the AirPods you get that in the case. But now it's $159 without the wireless
and
case.
$199.
$199 with the wireless case.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is a lot.
For things you're going to lose.
Yeah. So that case, for the wireless charge option, you're paying up. You don't have to get the wireless charge option. The AirPods themselves have an H1 chip, so the idea is that it has Hey Siri, so you could you just automatically summon Siri. The touch controls are the same, though, which is a little frustrating.
It does have a 30% more battery life, or 50%.
Yeah, we'll get to that. There's some cool things that it does with on a couple of fronts there. The tap control, I'm a big touch control person, so same tap controls and no volume controls there. You have to do Hey Siri, but oh well. Apparently, battery life for making calls is improved, so 3 hours versus 2 hours.
Right.
The connectivity is supposed to be faster with that chip, so
that was ever an issue.
And switching devices a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, but they said taking calls or switching devices or gameplay lag. They said.
That's.
And I was thinking, I hadn't been thinking about that.
They might be implementing Bluetooth 5.
They might be, although it wasn't mentioned.
Well, they wouldn't because it's their wireless chip.
But you're right.
It's special sauce. It's only Bluetooth when you connect it to
to
a non-iPad Apple device. You know how it is. It's Bluetooth no matter what.
It could very well be that. And I just woke up to catch up on all this.
Yeah, me too.
The same, still just white, and that's kind of the whole story. Were there any audio improvements? I don't
think so.
I mean, I think they said phone calls are supposed to handle better. But yeah, they're AirPods. They're AirPods with some nice updates. Not all the ones that you might have been looking forward to based on rumors. Nothing in terms of a sportier design or different fit. No different colors, and no addressing audio. They're not trying to get to any pro ear level for sound.
Yeah,
they could very well have a pro version of AirPods at some point, but then again, you're going to be talking about they're already $159, $199, so those would be a super pro price. So I don't know. That's I think most people are still wondering, do they pay money for wireless headphones in the first place? But they're one of the few price competitive. That's a really price competitive set of headphones anyhow. Those are not. Yeah. Those are not bad. I just want to have a few extra features that are still missing on them.
My big issue with the AirPods is the sound quality. I can't deal.
They're acceptable.
And I know that's not what they're for. Most people take phone calls with them. I get it. But I don't want something in my ear all the time to take phone calls. First of all, I don't make phone calls that much. And secondly, for me, it's about wireless music. And they deliver convenience out the kazoo and performance
but they're
in
not
terms
going
of
for
wireless connectivity.
They're not going for that
but
super
the sound
fidelity.
is just not there. I just feel that Apple could do so much better.
With the success of AirPods,
for $200, I would have expected the AirPods 2 to bump up the sound quality or something.
Well, maybe the fact that they didn't even really call them AirPods, I feel like they just said like new AirPods.
New AirPods,
right?
yeah.
Maybe they're still leading up to that, because I feel like there needs to be something that product has done very well for them, and it's become a big success. Like they should attend to making some sort of premium device for those who care about that and want to pay up for that sound quality. I don't know. That's where you say go for it. It's like that's a maybe even more so than Apple Watch. That's an area where I think people have a clear need. Yeah. And they go, I want my wireless, I want better noise canceling or audio quality or whatever it is, fitness functions. Yeah, I'd like to see that as a direction.
Me too.
But it's a big question. Like, I don't know what's going to happen next. Like, what's tomorrow? Are there going to be more Apple products tomorrow?
They've been talking about.
Where's AirPower?
There's been talk on an iPod Touch update. So maybe they'll drop tomorrow. Stay tuned, because by the time this is published, you will know what happened.
You'll know what happened
on Thursday and Friday of Apple Week.
What about iPhone SE? Why don't they just update that? I wrote a story about that in the spring.
I think that's more complicated. They need to go. I want to see them keep the chassis size, but go full screen. With if necessary with the notch.
Keep the chassis and just drop like an A11 in there.
You need this. You need the screen and the notch. It needs to be the new UI, the new way. It can't just be a new screen. It can't be the same form factor. Have you used an iPhone SE?
Yes.
It's way too small. You can't type on it.
But there are people who still want a small phone.
Yeah, but keep the chassis. It's about the chassis size, not the display size.
Well, that's the Mini. That's also like the Mini is the question. Do you want it with the smaller devices?
So what if they come out with an iPod Touch that has Face ID and has a full screen and a notch?
How expensive will that be?
And because economies of scale, they managed to scale it down. It's LCD based, like the 10R, and then they use that as the stepping stone to make a new iPhone SE.
Well, that would be cool. But I just feel like if Apple's really about when they pass the value on, and they're using the older technology like Touch ID, and that allows you to keep the price down, I'd rather have that than if I don't know if they would include Face ID and these other things and then bump the price up. And then you go, well, wait, now this is the more affordable iPhone, but now it's at a price that's all the other iPhones.
Let's see what happens. We need to wrap it up. I need to, I want to mention a few things for the audience. So I don't know if you heard of this company, Sirin Labs. They're an Israeli company. They make a crypto blockchain phone called the Fini. And, there's been a bunch of crypto blockchain phones announced, and I'm always rolling my eyes and going, yeah, whatever. But I met those guys at MWC, and it was kind of an interesting timing because they said, hey, our phone is actually just got FCC approval, and it's officially coming to the US. We're going to be selling it. Like right now, you could buy it in many parts of the world, but it wasn't officially certified for US networks yet. So they got certification, and they said, hey, would you like a device? And I said, yes, you don't say no to trying out a phone, especially a weird niche phone like that. And I have to say, and this is the takeaway here, is that this phone is actually pretty nice. And of course, it has a cold storage wallet, which is a big deal, because it means it can, securely store your whatever cryptocurrency and blockchain stuff you want to store. So that's what the Fini is from Sirin Labs. It's expensive. It's $999. But you get a pretty premium phone. Snapdragon 845, really good camera, nice display, big battery. It's a flagship phone from basically 2018 spec-wise. And you get this cold storage wallet with a secondary display that slides up that's like basically a separate piece of hardware for all the blockchain auth and Bitcoin and whatever else you want to put in there. So it's very cool. There's an unboxing, that's why I'm bringing it up. Check it out on my YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the description below. And then I want to quickly update people on other devices. I've got a MateBook X Pro laptop, the revised version 2019 specs. And that is also on my YouTube. I've got a couple of new smartwatch TicWatches, the Pro and the C2. And I got to play with that HP Folio Spectre leather laptop. So check all that out on my YouTube channel. Link in the description below. Scott, please tell the world where they can find you on the internet.
You can find me on CNET.com. You can find me Twitter at JetScott. And those are the main places.
Yeah. Do you have an Instagram?
I do, but I'm like never on it.
No, never on it.
I mean, I think it's also JetScott. So you can look for me. You can find like a couple of bowls of like vegetables and like things I grill, and that's about it.
All right.
Yeah.
So you know where to find me. I'm at Tankgirl on Twitter and Instagram. That's TNKGRL, just like the comic book, drop the vowels. Tankgirl on Twitter and Instagram. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/MiriamJoire. My full name spelled out. You can find my name on my Twitter account if you don't know how to spell it. Lots of content there, additional videos, unboxings, hands-on, that kind of stuff that go with the podcast. And of course, the podcast is at mobiletechpodcast.com. That's mobiletechpodcast.com. Subscribe, tell your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel, tell your friends, etc., etc. Share the love. Most importantly, I want to remind you all that we're on all the platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Overcast, TuneIn Radio, etc. And I want to thank our sponsor, Audible.com. Audible is the place to go for audiobooks. They're a great platform for audiobooks, lots of selection. What I love the best about it, honestly, is that some authors read their own books, so you get to hear it from their own voice, which I think is really cool. So if you want to support the podcast, please join Audible. There's a link in the show notes in the description below that will basically let you get 30-day free trial and at the same time help the podcast. So if you're interested in joining the best, in my opinion, audiobook platform out there, audible.com, please check out that link. It's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. That's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. And that's it, folks. We'll have another show next week, hopefully directly from the Huawei P30 event in Paris. So stay tuned for that. And we'll catch you next time. Cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.